Hi, it's Nikki Lowe and welcome to the Wisdom for Working Mums podcast show. I'm your host, and for nearly 2 decades now, I've been an executive coach and leadership development consultant. And on this show, I share evidence-based insights from my coaching, leadership and psychological expertise, and inspiring interviews that help women like you to combine your work, life and motherhood in a more successful and sustainable way. Join me and my special guests as we delve into leadership and lifestyle topics for women, empowering you to thrive one conversation at a time. I'm so happy that you're here, and let's get on with today's episode. Ever wish you had your own private chef at home? Yeah, me too. Imagine though, if that chef could be your child. Today, we're diving into a topic that's close to my heart, creating a healthy relationship with food for our families. As a busy working mum, I know how hard it can be to prioritise cooking nutritious meals amidst the chaos of daily life. But I also know the power of food, not just as fuel, but as a way to nurture, connect and create lasting memories. Growing up, my mum was an incredible cook who hosted the most amazing dinner parties for our neighbours. And as a child, I loved helping her in the kitchen. It was our happy place. But as a working mum myself, I often struggle to bring that same joy and connection to my family kind of kitchen and table, because limited time and drained energy, it can feel like a real challenge to inspire my children the way my mum inspired me. And that's why I'm so excited to welcome today's guest, Allegra McEvedy MBE, to the podcast. Allegra is an award-winning chef, broadcaster and author of the brilliant new children's book, Chefs Wanted. This inspiring book empowers young chefs aged 7 to 11 with the confidence and skills to whip up delicious dishes from around the world, packed with step-by-step recipes, hilarious illustrations, you've got to see it to believe it, and Allegra's expert tips. It's the perfect way to turn kids into capable kitchen helpers and foster a love of healthy food. You may know Allegra already because she's the co-founder of Leon, the iconic fast food chain, or as the author of 8 acclaimed books. She's also a seasoned broadcaster, having co-hosted CBBC's Step Up to the Plate with Fred Sirieix. She's judged the BAFTA-winning Junior Bake Off and appeared on BBC Two's Economy, Gastronomy and the Great British Food Revival. Through her work on screen, radio and in print, Allegra has inspired countless families to embrace the joy of cooking. And in 2008, Allegra was awarded the MBE for her extraordinary contributions to the hospitality industry, promoting healthier eating and ethical sourcing across the UK. And as a mum of 2 daughters, she really understands the juggle of work, motherhood, and trying to prepare nutritious meals that bring the family together. And in this episode, I think you're going to love it. Allegra shares her background about how she's worked in Robert De Niro's restaurant in New York, but returned back to the UK and started cooking meals, even though as a Michelin kind of trained chef, in her local community centre, making sure that families and local communities had access to good food, but for many. And she shares that actually it was her own mum's death when Allegra was only 17 that really fueled her love of being in the kitchen and nurturing kind of her family. And in this episode, Allegra not only shares with us all the amazing recipes in the book, but practical ways we can inspire our kids to become more confident little chefs, making cooking a joyful family affair and bringing more connection and creativity into our kitchens. It's definitely inspired me. I hope it inspires you. So grab a coffee and get ready to enjoy the delights of Allegra and turn your home into the hub of culinary magic. So welcome, Allegra. Thank you so much for joining me on the podcast.
Oh, it's a real pleasure to be here, Nikki. Thank you for asking me.
For those that don't yet know about you and your work, can you take us on the journey around kind of being an award-winning chef, broadcaster, author. Can you take us back to where it all started?
Oh, how long you got, Nikki? I'm an old cow of the business now. Well, I mean, I guess it all started, and that's relevant to the book that we'll talk about, in the kitchen when I was a kid. Yeah, that's when I really fell in love with food. It was me and my sister. My sister was always in the garden, and she's turned into a bit of a horticulturist. And I was always knocking around with our mum, just with my fingers in the flour bowl, sort of licking the batter, doing a bit of rolling. And I always found the kitchen my happy place. A bit like when you're a teenager going to parties. The kitchen has always been sort of the centre of I don't know, my happiness and the home for me. So I guess that was literally where it started, the journey. And then sadly, my mum died when I was 17, and my dad was of a generation who could just about boil an egg, but that was it. And my sister was off at university, so I mean, it wasn't like I had to, and I was sort of tied to the stove when I got back from school. But I liked cooking, and at a time where I was incredibly sad, cooking gave me pleasure. So I used to make dinner, really, really rubbish dinners. I have to say, how my dad swallowed some of them, I don't even know. I remember making him duck à l'orange with a whole load of orange juice once. That was actually pretty disgusting. But I had a go. And that was really sort of where the cooking thing kind of kicked in, on sort of doing it on a regular basis. And also, a part of cooking is providing, and this comes into the mum side of it as well. And that pleasure that you get from providing, and how actually feeding people, whether it's as a chef in a restaurant or to your friends and family, is actually an incredible source of joy and sort of goodness in your heart. Anyway, then I went and became a chef, and I worked at a sort of a clutch of London restaurants, at the River Cafe, good restaurants, and the Cow was my first head chef job at the age of 24. I was the youngest female head chef in London. And then I was too young, actually. I was too young for it, really. But, sometimes you take on a challenge and you have to rise to the occasion. And anyway, I left there, and then I went to New York, and I got a job literally by knocking on the door of Robert De Niro's restaurant and just blagging it. And when they gave me the job, I threw a pile of papers at them and said, right, now you've got to fill out literally 50 pages of documentation to get my visa sorted. See you in 6 months. I mean, the arrogance of youth is just incredible. God bless them, they did it. And I went back and had a very happy time. Working in New York with Tribeca Grill, with cooking for people like Uma Thurman, President Clinton, all these kind of really cool people. And then went to San Francisco and worked at a very seminal restaurant, which I don't know if you know, but called Chez Panisse. It was a woman called Alice Walters who basically she developed Fork to Farm. That was her, she was the first person who went the relationship between how long ago it grew, where it grew, what it grew next to, is directly related to how it tastes and how much nutrition and goodness it's got for you, which for now, these days, is just an absolute given. But back in kind of the early 90s was, real free thinking. And so I had a very important time with her, and over in San Francisco. And somewhere in all of that, I decided that, because you've got to remember the backdrop of what food was like in this country then. And really, it was, in order to be considered to be a chef of note, you had to go into Michelin. That was really what people would get, or Nouvelle Cuisine. Do you remember that? Ugh, awful. But, so it's that posh food. And I kind of had this really seminal, I call it my Matrix moment, where I've just realized that actually I didn't want to make posh food for posh people. And what I wanted to do was to make good food better for everybody. I came up with this phrase, the best food to the most people. And then that kind of shaped what I did after that. And I came back to London and I opened a restaurant. So I'd worked in all these Michelin and posh places. And I opened a restaurant in a community centre where we did a 2-course lunch for £5 every day of the week. And that's really sort of my sort of social side, which is massively important to me. And that thinking, several years down the line, went into the founding of Leon, which is what most people know me for. And somewhere in there, I got an MBE from our king for promoting healthier eating and ethical sourcing. I'm the patron of the Fair Trade Foundation. And God, I can't remember what else I've written 9 books. This is my 9th book. I've done lots of kids' telly and some regular telly, but more on CBBC. Was a judge on Junior Bake Off. I did 2 series with Fred Siriax called Step Up to the Plate, trying to get kids into the sort of back of house side of kitchens. questions. Where I mean, how I feel like I'm talking like loo roll. You can break it off at any point, Nikki.
You haven't. No, you painted the picture, and what a journey, and how you used really your grief to kind of nurture yourself, nurture your family, and then extend that kind of globally. But as you say, the social responsibility part really struck me. And obviously, what you're here to talk to us about today is your new book,
Oh, you've
Chefs
got a copy.
Wanted, that you've made me aware of. Yes, you made me aware just before we hit record that it's gone into the Amazon top. Tell me what
Yeah,
it's
we
gone
just
into
heard that
today.
it's been named by Amazon as one of their top 10 kids and young adults book of 2024, which is amazing. Can you think how many books there are? And last week, Friday's food program on Radio 4, which for any foodie is like a sort of a Sheila Dillon is a doyen and a goddess, and she's named it as one of her best children's books, kids books, young adult books of 2024. So I feel like it's arrived. I'm very, very pleased because I'm very proud of this book.
And so you should be. I was saying last night, me and my kids were looking through it and getting them to choose what they were inspired by. And it is such an engaging book. So tell me, what inspired you to do this? Because you say you've written other books. Why this book and why now?
So what happened was I've got two girls, and the big one, who is now 14, she was about, I don't know, maybe 9 or something, and at school, and she did cookery twice a term. And the first time she did it that term, she came back with some rather mediocre couscous, and I was like, I'm not judging. They're kids. I don't have hugely, but I was like, couscous, fair enough. But this was like, it was kind of a bit drab. Anyway, the second time she did cookery that term, she came back with the same rather drab couscous. So I wrote to the school and I said, couscous. Is there anything? I'm a chef. I love working with children. I've done all this work with the CBBC. I actually also write recipes for Chartwells, who supply food to 2,500 different state schools up and down the country. So I work with them. So I've got a sort of, I've got form with the kids. And I said, if you need some recipes, then I'm really happy to supply them. But that's enough of that couscous, please. And they wrote back and said, we're looking for and basically the lovely lady who'd done it for basically a bit too long, and we all know those people, was ready to retire, and they just couldn't find a replacement. So I went in and had a chat with the school, and and basically started teaching there. So I still teach it. This was 5 years ago now. They very kindly, I've managed to get a bit of budget together, and we did a bit of a revamp on the kitchen, so it was fit for purpose, not just couscous. And I started writing recipes specifically for the school, the kids, recipes that they wanted. I'd say to them, what do you want to know how to cook? And they'd be like, burritos. And I'd be like, okay. And then so I'd go off and have a little practice and do a sort of kiddie version, but still chefy, hence the title, Chefs Wanted. This is about cooking real food. Actually, the first thing they'd always shout is cupcakes. And I was like, well, that's not going to happen with me. So like, you can go and do that at the weekends with your parents, but we're going to learn how to make proper food. And so, every week it was on a cycle. So every month or so, I'd write a new recipe based on what they wanted to cook, and I take a little photograph and say this is what it's going to look like when it's finished, and then teach it to kids from the age of 3 to 13 was my remit. So I went from nursery through till year 8.
How lucky is your daughter's school? Because interestingly, my son's just started secondary school, and just this term has started his kind of cooking. And the first thing that they did was couscous salad.
Do you know why? Because it doesn't involve any cooking. It's just a boil a kettle. And a bit of chopping. I know, which I get. I totally get. And it is. I have to say, it's completely terrifying because I don't let them use any knives until actually quite young. In year. So when they're little, we do rolling, because so much of Nikki, I've never met a kid who doesn't like being in the kitchen. Who doesn't like cooking. There's the mess. There's the fun. There's the creativity. There's the the rolling and the stirring and the mixing and the whatever it is, you're throwing flour everywhere, and it's fun. Some kids don't like being messy, but they can use a spoon or whatever. But generally, just the whole experience is one that literally kids are just plugged into. And what happens is, as they get to be fussy eaters and they get to be a bit older and they get peer pressure, they kind of sort of go and it sort of becomes less cool, and they just become disengaged with it. But the young ones, anything up to kind of 9, 10, they literally all love love it. And so all I've tried to do is to just plug into that with recipes instead of giving them things that actually, because you know what, not many children actually love couscous. So things that they actually want to cook, and they're weird because the kids these days, they do eat on the high street. So one week they all said they want to make ramen. I'm like, okay, let's make ramen. And actually, the school my kids go to is vegetarian, which is, at first I was like, oh, God love a vegetarian, God love a vegan. Yes, we do. But actually, at first, as a chef, I was like, oh, that's a bit of a challenge. Now I absolutely love it. I mean, partly because I'm not going to kill anyone with meat poisoning or salmonella or anything, which is always a worry. But it's just such a great way to teach children about seasonality and vegetables. And so essentially, to go back to your question, which you asked about 20 minutes ago, the book came from the fact that I was writing these recipes and to such a small group of kids, and they're too good. So I went to my agent. I said, "Look, I've got these recipes," and so she punted them off. We went to Dawn Kindersley because they are the people to go to for sort of kids' educational books. And I said, I don't want it to look exactly like all of your fantastic books because they have a real house style. And they said, no, we don't want it to either. So that's why it looks quite different. But DK, a fantastic, global publisher, and this is getting a global release. So it's not a vegetarian book, but a lot of the recipes in it are vegetarian, and some of them have been adapted from being vegetarian. And then probably about 25% I wrote for the book.
And their dishes, as you say, it's a global release. They're dishes from around the world. I mean, I was really struck by the kind of wide variety of food and flavors. And when my kids were looking through it, they were like, oh my God, they hadn't kind of come across a lot of the dishes, because I was like, oh, actually, I must have like a really limited kind of repertoire. And so they were really inspired by the color, the design, it's really engaging, and that wide variety of approaches.
Yeah, I mean, we live in London. It's it's a multicultural world. The school's multicultural. You walk out onto the high street, it's multicultural. We're all traveling more. The kids, you look at whether it's YouTube or whatever. The world is getting smaller, and everyone's eating differently. And Nando's is for here to the high street, and what's that sort of peri Portuguese African? It's it was important to me to reflect that rather than, I mean, there's some sort of very Englishy recipes in there, but that's also not how I cook. I've always loved traveling and have traveled. I'm lucky to have traveled a lot, and whenever I traveled when I was from when I started at about 9 or something, I always kept a food diary, probably a sign of things to come. So I'm sitting in my study at the moment, and over there's literally a shelf of food diaries that I've had, that I've been keeping for far too long to mention now. But they're great with little pictures of, oh, this is what I had in this market, or, oh, I saw this amazing vegetable, don't know what it is, and just drew a really rubbish sketch of it. And I love my food diaries, actually.
Oh, I love that you did that and still do it. So I tell you what I'm thinking as I'm sitting here, that I can really align to the story of kind of being in the kitchen with your mum and how much that meant to you as a child. And it was the same for me. My mum was actually a stay-at-home mum and was brilliant in the kitchen. She used to like make her own profiteroles and fill them. And I'd just be in awe at just watching her, but just remember kind of getting and rolling the pastry with her and eating the raw pastry. And just like, I just loved being in the kitchen with her. But something that's I'm really aware of is, because I'm not a stay-at-home mum, I have a career in quite a demanding career, that making sure I get time in the kitchen with my kids, because it's not just about obviously the cooking. It's really important for me that they eat healthy home cooked food, but there is something about that connection in the kitchen as well. And so reading this made me go, this is beyond the food. It's kind of at a much deeper level. And I want my kids to remember when they're grown up, like the memories that I've got of my mum. And so when I was kind of preparing for this interview, obviously I wanted to showcase the amazing work you've got in this book, but also around how do we help anybody listening that also has that desire to be in the kitchen cooking with their children, inspiring their children around healthy eating. I wonder if you can share, because you're a busy mum yourself, how you do this practically, and where would you recommend somebody
Well, I mean,
starts?
I think you hit the nail on the head right at the top, where you said your mum was a stay-at-home mum. I mean, that's not the story these days, is it? Well, not for a lot of us. I was a single mum for many many years, and juggling being a self-employed single mum in hospitality, with my two children was a push. I mean, I obviously had a bit of a start in that it's the world I work in, so we constantly have, I'm doing huge tastings here, and sort of literally 6 boxes of ingredients turn up of a Tuesday morning on the school, just for the school run, and the kids just sort of step over them, the romesco cauliflowers or whatever. But I mean, it's that really really boring thing. I mean, I'm sort of going to sidetrack slightly. I have only very recently learned how to be a grown up about money. I'm no good with money. I do okay, but I'm not a sensible person. As in, I'm not frivolous with it. It doesn't interest me. I pay the bills. I'm not. And it's a bit like that with food. You have to kind of engage with it and be a bit of a grown up in order to be able to do it. So, and I'm going to say really boring things. Plan. Have a look at the weekend look through Chefs Wanted or whatever book. Look on the internet. Look on BBC Good Food. That's a great resource. Look at whatever you want. Ask your children what they want to eat in the week, and make a plan. I mean, my recipes in this book, and I'm not punting this, but they're all doable. I've done all of these with my children in less than an hour. And so, that you've got an hour. If you go into it with a plan, so at the weekend, you know what, let's make gnocchi pesto, and you don't have to make the gnocchi, by the way. But you do make the pesto. Let's choose a couple of things. Let's do that. We can do that after school on Tuesday. We can bang that out after the homework and before the piano practice. That's okay. You just make a bit of a plan, or if you just want to literally talk to them about how you roast a chicken. Look, you pop this in. Pop this in the oven or a chicken breast or whatever, and half an hour later it comes out, and look how yummy it is. And if you put the potatoes in the pan, but you've got free carbs on the side, and they're delicious because they cook in all the juice. And hey, and stick a carrot in there, and then you've got meat and 2 veg, and you're flying. So it's literally about working, work smart, not hard, is the phrase in the kitchen that's always kicked around. Plan ahead, and even to the extent where, like I said, chuck it all in the oven and bosh, So there's that it's unbelievably boring, which is why I made the money analogy at the start. I find that unbelievably boring, but I just have to do it.
I love that analogy because it actually made me think. I remember when I moved we brought an old farmhouse about 20 years ago, 22 years ago. And when we did the kitchen, we had an Aga put in, and I was like, right, I'm going to be this like amazing kind of, I don't know who I thought I was going to be.
I do. Yeah. I got your number.
Yeah, I remember going, and I haven't got a clue how to roast a chicken. And I lost my mum actually 19 years ago today,
sorry.
but I remember in her last year of her life kind of ringing her up and saying, can you come round and help me just work out what the hell I do with this chicken? And I realised that although I'd been in the kitchen with her, not being, as you say, the intentionality of being, actually it's boring, but you've got to know this stuff. And how, if I'd been like, I want to be more intentional with my children about that, because you don't know how long you're going to be around for. And I want them to feel that if they want to cook a really lovely meal, that they feel resourced to be able to do that. So I love the intentionality about, it might be boring, but let's get a plan together. Let's get prepped so that we're setting ourselves up for success.
That's exactly it. Set yourselves up for success, because otherwise you're scrabbling around, and it's fine to scrabble around at the back of the cupboard and pull out some pasta of a Tuesday after evening or whatever. But actually, you're not going to, if you want to make your children or get your children more engaged with food, eating healthier, knowing more about that journey, just hanging out with their mum in the kitchen. Like you and I have both. You and I are both holding on to those memories. We both lost our mums a long time ago, but they're still important to you and me, and passing some of that on. You ain't going to do it by just sitting there and looking at your laptop or your phone. So you got to make the time for it. It's anything. It's in order to get on top of it. It's me and my boring spreadsheets.
Do you do planning on your spreadsheets then, or is that just for the
Well, my wife does. No, I can't, but she does. Yeah, she's excellent.
So does she do the meal planning on the spreadsheets?
No, 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 no. She does the money. No, 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 no. The meal planning spreadsheet. No, no, that feels all wrong to me. But you know what? Do whatever works for you. If you want to do it on a spreadsheet, do it on a spreadsheet. No, no. She does the money on a spreadsheet. We do the meal plan. We do the meal planning on something that looks like this. I've constantly got bits of piece of paper hanging around my house. But it's a joy. Sorry, yeah. Sorry, it's a joy.
No, I love that. So tell me about what your favourite recipes in this book, and I can tell you what my children went to as well.
Well, actually, when you I literally have. I mean, I think there's barely a weak link in this. I mean, if there is a weak link, I'm flicking through it now, and I really do have loved these all, because this is, as we were talking about earlier, Nikki, this is my 9th book, and I am really proud. Normally, when you get to this stage of the book, you are over it. You are literally over it. You've written it, you've edited it, you've re-edited it, you've shot it, you've reshot it, you've touched up, you've told them that they've done that doesn't sound like you're you are done, 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 done. I still love this book. It's so fresh. Alice, there's this lady called Alice Boucher who did the illustrations. They are so bonkers. I was just looking there. There's a recipe for sunshine scones, and they've got corn and turmeric in them. And she's put this corn on the cob on a sun lounger. So just chilling out on a sun. She's just absolutely great, and that's one of the things I think that's really made it like pop for the children, and also makes me laugh, because it's not just my food, my words, my shoot. I'm looking at spring rolls with sweet chili dipping sauce. She's got a chili having a bath in a little dish of sweet chili sauce, and it's just really cool.
So what I particularly love about it is you go through around kind of seasonality and food miles. So there's an education process in this that is wider than just the cooking itself. You go through about what a smart chef is, and then you go through, which I think is great, because we forget what we know and what we don't know at a certain stage. So you go through about the spices and the herbs, because there's an assumption that our kids might know some of this stuff, and we just take it for granted. So what I love is that. And then one of the first things when I opened the book, there was a jam sandwich, and I was like, and then I realised, obviously, you're teaching us to make bread, soda bread. And I was like, I love that. That is so my daughter. She loves, her go-to snack is a jam sandwich. But I was like, that just elevates it up. And the thing that she's
sorry, go on. I was just going to say that's the first recipe that I do with every class at school once they're old enough to be on the stoves, which I introduced the stoves and the knives at year 4. But I do a jam sandwich, because I just think that's something that every kid can relate to. And so within an hour, I teach them 12 at a time. We start off, we make the butter. So milk, so the milk cream goes in. Out of that, they get a ball of butter and the buttermilk, which is the byproduct. From the buttermilk, you make the soda bread, because that's the traditional way to do it. And then once the bread's in the oven, because it's not one that you have to leave to rise, obviously, once the bread's in the oven, you make a pot of seasonal jam, whether it's plum in the autumn or strawberry in the summer. And they do, at the end of an hour, each very surprised looking kid leaves with a loaf of bread in a brown paper bag, a ball of butter, and a pot of still rather hot jam. But but they're just, and then they go and sit. And I remember the first time I did it, and I was like, woo, felt like I'd just done a marathon. But then I opened the back door to the kitchen and just went and had a look. There's a little bit of grass outside the back of the school, and they were sitting there, literally breaking bread, huffing it into the butter and dipping it in the jams, just sitting bunches of kids. And I was just like, okay, right there, that's what we're doing. Yeah, that is why we're doing this.
And that sense of achievement for the children as well, of like, yeah. And so I was blown away by that. That was one of the things that first caught my attention. And then the thing that my daughter's asked that we're making this weekend is the banana croissant crunch French toast. That's where she went
Yeah,
to.
that's a good one. That's well, you know why they love that one. I've been doing that one actually in demos when I've been doing book promotions around the country. Is because you wrap you put the banana in the croissant, then you wrap it in cling film, and then you sit on it and you give it a good old bum squiggle, and you know, and everyone just loves the fact that I said yeah. Then you sit on it and you give it a good old this till it's nice and squidgy, because it's got to be fun. That's the thing. If it's not fun, they're not going to do it. You know, so my teaching style and even my writing style, it's not. Or rather, it is a bit irreverent. It is talking to them on their level. You do. It's got to be. Cooking is part art, part science, and 100% magician. There's nothing about it that kids won't like if you sell it to them. And so you need to bring some energy to it rather than just like, oh god, I've got to make banana croissant for French toast for the kids. All I want to be doing is whatever it is you want to be doing. But you've got to enjoy it. And I bet you, if you throw out yourself at it, and this goes to all of you busy mums out there, you go in with the right attitude, and you'll all come out not only with banana croissant, crunch French toast, or whatever the stupid name of it was, but all feeling pride, happiness, and just like you're a little bit of a better person because of it.
Oh, you've sold it. You have sold it, Allegra. So the one that my son went to was the bacon and egg pancakes. And I tell you what I love about your book and what I love about cookbooks generally. I can have all the ingredients in the kitchen. And after a busy day, I kind of look like a kind of deer in headlights. I'm like, what am I doing? I'm tired. I'm overwhelmed. I'm kind of, my brain isn't working properly. And what I loved about this is my son absolutely loves bacon and eggs. He's like a proper bacon and eggs, but we've never tried them with pancakes. I'm like, why have I not thought
Well,
about doing
actually, I
that?
don't know if you read the intro to that, but that's where it came from because I'm bacon. I'm like your boy. I'm bacon and eggs, but my kids are both pancakes. And I was like, well, I'm not doing two brunches of a weekend. So whack them together, a bit of maple syrup, a bit of bacon, a bit of nice fresh. Delicious. So you've basically got double brunch on this weekend. Try and choose some of the proper dinners.
Well, the other one that my son went to was like Friday night, movie night. He likes the
Yeah, so
nacho
good.
hack because, again,
Yeah.
I'm like, we don't tend to have nachos at home. And I was like, that's one that he will enjoy making for us for movie night. And we'll take that with such kind of.
Exactly. And the nachos, they're so you start with corn tortillas, which are available in pretty much every supermarket now or online. So not the flour ones, the corn ones. Cut them up, bake them, so there's nothing, not deep fried. Bake them, and then in that, it's got like a salsa with black beans and corn in it. And so you've got your carbs, you've got you've got your veggies in there. So it is, and obviously your cheese and chili and blah blah. So, but even in that basic recipes, you're squeezing in that protein. You're introducing pulses. Most kids are funny about pulses, apart from baked beans, which for some reason they don't consider a pulse. Who knew? But they are a bit weird. But I don't like kidney beans or whatever. But you squeeze the pulse, and they're just like, oh, they all. And that's the thing. If you bring that enthusiasm, I mean, when I started teaching, like the kids were like, no, I don't like chili. There's a whole double page spread on chilies. I don't know if you've seen that because I adore chilies. And now in my classes, I say, okay, so you don't have to have chili, but anyone fancy a little bit? What did I make? What are we making this weekend? I've done a vegan sausage roll for them this weekend with like Bramley apples and roasted squash, a little bit of soy mince, some miso in there, and you make it's really like also with sage because it's like Christmassy. So it's a really delish kind of vegan sausage roll, and they all thought it was yummy. But anyway, it's just like it's really good with a little bit of chili. Don't have to. And I think all but one kid was like, "Yes, chef." Because they call me Chef Allegra. Yeah, Chef Allegra. That's why the book. I was going to call it Yes, Chef, but it was a bit too chefy. So, but Chef Wanted is. I think it's what we need. We need more chefs.
Absolutely. The other two that my son picked out were Barney's pie.
Oh, bless Barney. Yeah. Barney's pie looks banging, doesn't it?
It looks amazing, and my son was pleased because you'd allowed a little bit of, I think it's tomato ketchup on the side, and he was like,
and I think I said it's obligatory. But yeah, no, it's really good. And actually, there's another one that my wife's American. She's a New Yorker, and so and she introduced me to the way of the grilled cheese sandwich. So that's in there, and your boy will probably like that too. But that's got not only has it got compulsory ketchup, but it's got. Well, I mean, it's not compulsory, but I say nice, but cold ketchup. from the fridge ketchup. Yeah, so hot grilled cheese with the cheese pull that all the kids go on about, and they're the cold dollop of ketchup. It's like, oh, so good, Nikki, so good.
And I love that with the pie, you've made it like you put in. I've spent time adapting this to make sure that it's actually really workable and doable. And I love that.
Yeah.
It looks incredible.
Yeah. Oh, good. I think your boy's a bit of a cook, by the way.
He is. He's more so than my daughter. He really enjoys being practical. And the other one that I really appreciate, because I love to do do slow cooking, is the winter warmer stew with the buttery mash, and how you teach people to do proper mash.
Yeah, it's called winter warmer stew, but I say straight off that it's actually all about making mash. That's how chefs make mash. Yeah, that's not how mums make mash. That's how and it doesn't involve anything more than the usual tools, but it's just the way that you do it. It's just slightly different to how a mum would generally do it. I'm breeding an army of young chefs.
You are, and you've got is it the makey rolls?
Mackie rolls, yeah. You see, because when I said to them, "What do you want to make?" I was amazed how many of them said sushi. I was like, "Really? You want to make sushi?" Yeah. I'm like, these are just regular Joes, and that's happened. Kids just love sushi. I don't know why, but they just have you tried that with your kids?
No, not yet. But I'm not really a sushi fan, so it's making me go, I maybe not open the world of sushi to them.
Exactly. You see, because you closed that door for yourself, but now you've closed it for your children. Open it up, Nikki. They love it. Kids, I don't know why, cold rice in seaweed. Do you think if you try to sell that to a kid, they were like, no, but actually they love sushi.
And you've got things like rockin' ramen, the meze munches, and my favourite that I want to try, let alone the kids, is the cauliflower cheese vol au vents.
Yeah, why not, man? Why not? Two great things there. There's another one that's a combination of two great things. There's a recipe in there for pizza wheels, and I was like, two of man's greatest invention, pizza and the wheel, in one recipe. It's like, yeah. No, I'm glad that you like it. I mean, I think you should get him one for Christmas. Or you could just give them that one.
I think they're going to start using that this weekend. And I think I'm going to try and instill, as you say, just this habit of you pick one recipe a week and let's just explore and experiment. And
you know what? I'm going to come back to you in a couple of months and say, how's that going, Nikki? I'm going to pull you up on that and just see, because it literally one recipe a week. All you need to do is whack it onto your avocado or whatever. They're all basic ingredients. Just make a bit of. I know you said top tip. But being a working mum is one of the best things in the world. I'm really glad that my kids see what it's like to be a working mum. You can be a mum, a great mum, and run your own business and do this and do that, but you've got to keep on top of it, and part of keeping on top of it is the planning.
And you said something that really struck me, that I've closed the door for me and therefore closed the door for my children, and it's about opening those doors. And I was like, that's really powerful. I was like, oh gosh, yeah.
That's a bit harsh as well, isn't it? It's a little bit harsh.
I can see my son has got my husband's kind of palate, and he will eat everything, squid, octopus. I don't like seafood particularly, and my daughter is like, oh no, I don't like that, and I'm like, you've never actually tried it to say that.
Yeah, but it's easy for me to sit here and say that because I love food. I've always loved food. I've always loved cooking. I've been in it, but basically all my life in some way or another. Yeah, there are lots and lots and lots of people out there, who don't like cooking, and so I can see that the challenge would be, you want your children to be engaged with food, you want your children to be eating healthier, but if you yourself aren't that happy in the kitchen, but maybe maybe use Chef's Wanted as a reboot, because it is a book it's just fun to look at, and maybe it can help people re-engage. I mean, I'm not trying to oversell it, I'm not the messiah or anything, but maybe it just can be a way that parents and kids can re-engage together in the kitchen.
And what struck me then is our kids can inspire us to fall back in love with the kitchen, or fall in love with it perhaps for the first time. So thank you for writing this book, and thank you for inspiring my kids and also me in the process. So I've just got a couple of questions to finish on, and I wonder, if you had to pick just one dish that represented for you in your home comfort and joy, what would that be?
Well, can I have two?
Yeah.
Because they're quite different. I mean, comfort and joy, I don't think you can really beat a roast chicken. As in people get to, there's something about a roast chicken, particularly like for us, I think something about a Sunday meal, whether it's Sunday lunch or Sunday, is a little bit sacred. It's a time England particularly, or Britain, or it's particularly British to do that, but just have that moment where it comes out of the oven, you're all sitting together, like you said, make it easy for yourself, put the potatoes and the carrots in the pan with the chicken so it's all done already. Then you've got to just boil some greens and you're away. It's not a big drama, but there's something about sitting down to a roast chicken that is just, you did it as a child, your mum did it as a child, we've done it. It's a moment. But for our family, I take tacos. Because tacos, you can have them meaty, you can have them veggie, you can just have them with the cheese and the salad. You can have, bits of broccoli in them. You can have a beef chili in them. You can have strips of chicken. You could just, you can do whatever you want. You can have beans. You can have salsa, blah, 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 and everyone gets to choose. Choose what you want, and that's what a family's about. It's about trying to please the best people, the best food to the most people.
Two strong choices there. And what it made me think as well is the roast chicken is a really strong one. One of the things that I did with my mum and I've passed on to my children is just one of those family rituals that sticks with you is my mum always used to keep the wishbone and then we'd dry it out and then we'd alternatively get to be able to pull the wishbone and whoever got the bigger side of it would get to make the wish.
Yeah, sometimes I find them at the back of the, we call it the hot air cupboard because it's not really an airing cupboard, it's the boiler cupboard, but we call it the hot air cupboard. And sometimes you see them just hanging on the pipes that you're thinking, well, how long have they been there?
Yeah. And so as you say, how much comfort that brings. And my final question is, what is one hack or tip that you've learned in the kitchen that you could pass on to us that just either is something we might not know or just would make life easier?
Oh God, you're going to hate me because I scratched something down and it's really, really boring. And there's probably loads more that I could think of that are actually useful, like buy peeled onions or something like that. But actually, in terms of like if you were serious about sort of your newfound culinary life, Nikki, keep on top of your fridge. Keep on top of your fridge because actually having a sort of stock rotation, it sounds so boring, but actually it's really rewarding because food waste, it will absolutely go down. But if you keep on top of it, and I do it sort of I fiddle a bit throughout the week, but generally on a Saturday morning when I get up, have a coffee or whatever, and then I go to the fridge and I just have a look. Right, check your sell-by dates. What the heck is that at the back there? Go to the back of the veg drawer. Feed it to the rabbit or whatever if it's gone. But if not, turn it into a soup or something. But there's something so satisfying about not. I mean, do you know the stats on how much food we throw away? I mean, I think it's something like 30%. It's really, it's actually gross how much. So keeping on top of your food waste makes you feel better about yourself, the planet. Using stuff, your money, all of it. It's amazing how satisfying staying on top of your fridge is, and that is my sexy tip for you.
I wasn't expecting you to say that, but that's so reassuring to hear because, as you say, you think it's all like the bells and whistles and the sexy stuff, but as you've pointed out already, it's just being a grown up about this and kind of applying some intentionality to it.
Yeah, so sorry not to be more exciting about that one, but it is actually it is actually useful and rewarding.
And time well spent, because I do that on a Saturday morning actually, and sometimes I'm like, oh, other people are doing things far more exciting in their life, but now you've reassured me, no, I'm doing something incredibly worthwhile for the planet.
As long as, yeah. Exactly. Such a pleasure talking to you, Nikki. Thank you so much.
And thank you for the work that you've put into the world and into this book. If you've enjoyed this episode of Wisdom for Working Mums, please share it on social media and with your friends and family. I'd love to connect with you too, so if you head over to wisdomforworkingmums.co.uk, you'll find a link on how to do this. And if you love the show and really want to support it, please go to iTunes, write a review and subscribe. You'll be helping another working mum find this resource too. Thanks so much for listening.